And sorry.
How are you?
All good, thank you.
Thank you. It's good to have you here, especially after AMLD Africa. So, can you introduce yourself very quickly?
Sure. So I'm sitting in Johannesburg, South Africa. We recently met up at the conference at BITS on machine learning. And we've been in technology space for a long time. Before all this stuff was called AI, it was sort of data science, then it became machine learning, and then we sort of found ourselves in the AI space now. And so
Mm,
we've been quite active in terms of setting up technology capabilities here in South Africa, so that we can ultimately be value creators and have that value recognized so we can redeploy it in other contexts here in South Africa and not just continue to be a consumer of technology. So
mhm,
that's been my space for quite some time, is taking technology and to implement in Africa requires sort of an application mindset. So we've been focused on the last several years applying AI into various contexts, which is what we'll talk about today. So yeah, I'll stop there and hopefully that just
mhm.
gives a sense of people as to where I'm based and what we'll be busy with.
Yes. And when you say we, you're referring to Cirrus AI. Hey everyone, this is not an ad. Go to blueware.com/in, that's BLUWR.com/in, like inside, and write about something that makes you think.
Yeah, we always, it's a team effort to do stuff. You can never do
Mhm.
thing as anything as a one man person, a one man band type thing. When you do all these kinds of things, if it's going to be substantive, it means a team of people have to work on things. And so we've been working together as a team across lots of different organizations and individuals over the years to bring what we all talk about today
Mhm.
into existence.
Okay. So can you quickly introduce what Cirrus AI is?
Yeah, so Cirrus AI, like I said, is a company focused on technology. I mean, to be a technology company, data is obviously really important in that space.
Mhm.
So what we'll talk about today is how we um, keep that theme of technology and data, and how we sort of create everyday businesses that create a flywheel of data that ultimately will rest on a technology backbone. So yeah, Cirrus is all about technology, and it's about taking that technology and applying it into various contexts. And we'll speak about two of those contexts today, and just don't lose sight of the application. Really, um, being a way for us to initiate stuff here in South Africa.
Mhm.
But ultimately, it's that technology underpinning which is most critical for people to appreciate, and that theme carries through to the things we're going to do in the future as well.
Okay. Okay. So before we talk about these projects, can you introduce the technology you're referring to?
Yeah. So um, recently in the news, there was obviously a lot of talk about AI influence on a lot of industries and companies and domains, like software as an example. So for us, we've been in the technology space for quite some time. So we've not only anticipated these things, but we've contributed to a lot of its development. And so for us, we talk about AR, for example, how we can apply it in various contexts and how that application can bring about new opportunities and create new value. And that is inherent in all the things we're doing, is about how we can apply technology to create new efficiencies, unlock new opportunities, to create new value, and in creating value, accumulate resources which we can deploy into various contexts that can have societal and economic impact.
Okay, I see. And so what would be the two? Yeah, I know that you project starts with we start with two projects, so
Mhm.
one on coffee and one on women's health. That would become the foundation for what series what's to the next. So can you also introduce like let's start about the coffee project first.
Mhm. So coffee is really simple. No coffee is currently made in Africa at scale. If I go to the store here in South Africa and you purchase the coffee, in most cases it comes from somewhere like there's a green bean will come from Brazil, go to Europe, turn into a final coffee product, and import it back into South Africa. Um, which is obviously not very effective approach. And so our focus is to take 22,000 tons a year roughly of green coffee bean, turn those into final coffee products, and put on South Africa's green bean coffee production. There's
Mhm.
currently Africa's quite good at robusta productions, not that great at Arabica, but over time we hope to change that. So over time we hope to have 100% of our bean coming from Africa under the African Free Trade Agreement, turn those into final
Mhm.
coffee products, which we then export globally, and then use revenues from that hard currency export and to deploy into societal context here in Africa, starting in South Africa. And our focus there is to take revenues and take a portion of those revenues and dedicate that to anti trafficking efforts and human trafficking, wildlife trafficking, and anti money laundering. And to be effective in that space, one needs technology. One needs to put in the parallel to what sits in the US or North America. It's called Polaris. Polaris is a data management platform powered by Palantir. We want to set up a data management platform to support our anti trafficking and anti money laundering efforts here in South Africa. And we'll use the coffee revenues to support that effort, but we'll also power that effort. So the data management platform needed for that, we will use the same data management platform we use within our organization. And we'll also use all the HPC and engineering infrastructure and talent we're
Mhm.
using in other areas of the organization to support that anti trafficking and anti money laundering efforts that sit within what's called our foundation, basically. So we set up our foundation a few years ago to actually house these operations. So
Mhm.
it's almost got a feel and a function very similar to Polaris in the US, where it's got a technology backbone and that technology is sitting in a foundation through which we can power that foundation by our activities within our coffee operation.
Mhm. Okay. And what's the role of AI in the coffee operation?
So we eventually want to turn the coffee plant into a self-driving plant. That means that
Mhm.
AI effectively drives that plant from start to finish. Um, Creating coffee is really a it's chemistry. You have a green bean and you have a set of volatile organic compounds, which are outputs. And we use AI to map the green bean to the set of volatile organic compounds. Um, those volatile organic compounds are quantitative, and we map that to a qualitative set of characteristics, which is, there's a coffee flavor wheel, which is basically encapsulates everyone's all the different preferences
Mhm.
for coffee flavor. And so we map those VOCs using AI to that qualitative flavor matrix wheel. And then we also map the manufacturing process to hit those VOCs time and again. So we can produce high quality coffee consistently and then we use AI to basically manage the plant in the process of doing that as well. So green bean comes in, process that into a final coffee product. That is all parameterized using AI and managed using AI. So you have a very efficient and effective coffee production process. So does that
Mhm.
answer your question?
Yes, yes, it does. And what about the women's health?
Women's health products is a similar context. So
Mhm.
women's health is about having a plant which also can become a self-driving plant. Um, so that you're able to produce women's health products and services at a much lower price point and a much higher quality. Women's health has got a number of components. So when you're addressing women's health in Africa, it's an issue of under resourced and underserved in a number of different spaces. So you need to come with an entire toolkit when you're talking about women's health in Africa. And it's no good, for example, if you create a diagnostic for endometriosis, informing a woman she's got endometriosis if you don't have a treatment for that. So it's about addressing the mundane products or the products that are necessities that a lot of women don't have access to. So providing them with tampons, sanitary pads, menstrual cups, um, and then putting technology into those products so that they actually have added value. So putting biosensors into menstrual cups, putting biosensors into sanitary pads, and then become diagnostics. And then once you've diagnosed them with a particular condition, giving her a pathway to treatment. And then throughout this whole process, you're accumulating data and you feed that data back into your diagnostic development platform and into your drug development platform. So you continue to evolve your treatments and your diagnostics. Um, and so we've been creating that whole toolkit over time here from our learnings in Africa, and it's become a product which is globally relevant. So we can serve not only women in Africa, but we can serve women in Singapore, New York, London, etc. Because they actually turns out they've got the same needs. But you need to integrate this whole ecosystem. For example, we'll be doing wearables in the women's health as well. Wearables are important because if a woman's been diagnosed with endometriosis and we give her a treatment for her
Mhm.
endometriosis, to get to precision medicine or to optimize the dosage for her, we need feedback. So we need to actually monitor serum levels so we can actually inform her whether she needs to increase or decrease the dosage. So this is why this whole ecosystem approach is incredibly important. Um,
Hmm.
and so we basically created a whole ecosystem, which is our toolkit for addressing women's health here in Southern Africa, but that is globally relevant. And it creates an opportunity for Southern Africa and South Africa in particular because there's raw materials which need to go into these products that we are well positioned to actually incorporate in products
Hmm.
that don't otherwise have these constituents included. So, for example, we have a lysol plant as part of our women's health operation. The lysol plant takes the dissolving pulp from SAPI here in South Africa, which is 900,000 tons a year from a single mill. All that typically goes to China where it gets turned into a fiber. So we'll be the first in Africa to take that pulp, turn that into a fiber, and then we use those fibers in things like sanitary pads, tampons, wipes. We even use those fibers for your coffee capsule pods. So your paper-based coffee pods actually Lysol is a better constituent of that
Hmm.
coffee pod. We also use the Lysol in transdermal patches, and we use the Lysol for underwear and lingerie as well. So we're unlocking new job creation and new products and
Hmm.
creating new value and revenue streams for South Africa in producing these products. And again, putting diagnostics and technology into these products allows us to add new value, which open
Hmm.
up new opportunities for us to improve the quality of life and reduce suffering for women and girls. So, for example, it's not just a case of producing lingerie or underwear for women. It's a case of incorporating technology into certain of those products. So, for example, utilizing the same technology we actually have for our endometriosis diagnostic, we can create a smart bra
Hmm.
by putting basically sensors to that bra that create effectively a sonogram. Because certain women, for example, the density of their breasts is a lot higher than other, than certain
Hmm.
other women, and they can go for a mammogram, and that tumor is a similar density to their surrounding breast tissue. So that mammogram, that tumor appears no different from the surrounding tissue. So it's difficult to discern that that woman actually has a tumor there. Um, and so you know, just going for mammogram is not necessarily always, definitive for a lot of women, but we can actually incorporate technology into a bra so that we've got provided women with a high fidelity um, feedback in terms of if she's got any tumors and if she needs to take any potential
Hmm.
action. So you're just taking a product which has utility in one context by incorporating technology. You open up uh, more avenues to women that can improve their everyday life. So a woman for a very low price point, I mean, those sensors don't cost a lot of money to
Okay.
incorporate into a bra to make it a smart bra. And by having a smart bra, she can have far more frequent monitoring of her breast health, for example. And we can do that for a range of other conditions too. But creating those technology touch points also gives us touch points into our whole ecosystem. And that ecosystem is really an AI driven ecosystem. So by um, putting diagnostics into sanitary pads, you're now able to bring that data into an electronic health record context to not only diagnose things like PCOS and endometriosis, but potentially other conditions.
Hmm.
But then you bring that into a whole set of electronic health records, and you can start putting treatments for those conditions. And then you start refining those treatments through wearables and diagnostics and other things, and you create a whole value proposition to women, which is currently not on offer. So you then again
Hmm.
use that data as a flywheel to generate future diagnostics and treatments. So hopefully that just gives you a
Absolutely.
bit of a background of how we take an everyday product, we produce those everyday products at a higher quality and a lower price point. Here in South Africa, using our raw materials, we incorporate technology there, and then we create a whole ecosystem around that.
Okay. And the ecosystem, like the coffee and the women's health, they're basically parts of the same ecosystem.
Yeah, they're the same ecosystem in different ways. I mean,
Okay.
to explain that, I mean, the coffee and women's health utilize, from a physical infrastructure standpoint, a lot of shared infrastructure. So your water
Hmm.
treatment plant, your machine shop, your gases, your boiler house, all that kind of stuff utilize the shared infrastructure. Um,
Hmm.
Even the laboratory that's testing samples from the Lysol plant, the same laboratory running samples from the coffee plant, the same laboratory running samples from the bioreactor systems. Um, So all these shared pieces of infrastructure work out to significant savings from a capex and opex perspective. And then, you generate some revenue streams of your coffee portfolio, which we're using for anti-trafficking efforts and anti-money laundering efforts. And then we also generate some revenue streams of our women's health operation, which is being used in the women's health context. But then that data and those AI components that are supporting the coffee and the women's health operations, that's relying off shared infrastructure, shared AI infrastructure and engineering. So to make the coffee a self-driving lab or AI-enabled process, to make the women's health operation an AI-enabled process and self-driving requires that again shared infrastructure of AI engineering and infrastructure. Um, so you also have a strong portfolio because when you ship those products around the world, they go into the same container. So I don't have a separate container for coffee. I don't have a separate container for women's health products. It all goes through the same supply chain, through to those final in market destinations. So there's
Okay.
basically this operation is not only co-located physically and co-located with shared human capital, but there's shared components right the way down to the final product reaching those end consumers.
I see. And when you're talking about AI infrastructures, what type of AI structure do you mean? And are you building it or are you using pre-existing infrastructure?
Well, we're fortunate in that we have existing data centers which are underutilized, so we're
Mhm.
able to utilize those data centers. So we don't have to build stuff from scratch, and we'll put into that input into those data centers accelerated infrastructure, so it's CPU, GPU infrastructure, and in the future, we're talking in the 2030s, we'll replace that platform with another platform that uses qubit processing units. So we'll have CPUs, GPUs, and QPUs effectively, and that will unlock new opportunities. So you can imagine, and um, AI is obviously accelerated materials discovery and drug development, and various processes like you've got fast MC, fast Monte Carlo. But once you've got QPUs, you have an even more significant improvement in certain algorithms and certain computations. So we'll be able to further accelerate materials discovery and drug development, which is all important in the context that we're talking about, because coffee is like a chemical, it's a chemistry process. In women's health, when you're making lysol, pulp to fiber, that's all bioreactor systems. And we also have a separate bioreactor systems for our development of active pharmaceutical ingredients for treatments. And so you have AI not only within those bioreactor systems to optimize them, but you also have them sitting sort of outside of that. All those bioreactor systems almost sit within an AI process, whereby we use AI to actually um, do the development of new strains and do the development of simulations and stuff before it actually goes into production. So you have our Biomira platform, which is basically an accelerated um, platform for the development of new
Mhm.
um, uh, substances or chemicals are novel ingredients, and they can be produced on precision fermentation. And then you have the AI algorithm also managing the precision fermentation process itself. So hopefully that makes a bit of sense in terms of tying infrastructure together. But in short, data centers are available. We have access to putting our infrastructure into a data center, which is here in Johannesburg. And
Mhm.
then we put our computing platform in, and that computing platform powers the coffee operation, powers the women's health operation, and it powers women's health operation at various levels, more so than the coffee, because we have a whole digital ecosystem in the women's health operation. Electronic health records, clinical trials, research studies. You've got, um, you know, digital physicians, which are being driven by orchestration. So physicians are not scalable
Okay.
physically, but a digital version of a physician is. And so we have our basically
Yeah.
a high performance computing platform, um, setting up all the orchestration of those models, of those various LLM agents who can effectively do thousands of LLM agents being orchestrated to provide um, f- guidance to women and girls across the developing world and developed world, with health guidance that is validated to perform better than if they're interacting with a single physician. So it's basically their health companion that they're interacting with as and when they need to, and it can also support local clinical contexts, like local clinical practice guidelines, and also support local languages because you need to be able to communicate with people in their own language.
Mhm.
So that for us is a
Yes.
major focus. It's not only the orchestration, but it's the localization into the local health context, which for us is a differentiator
Mhm.
and really important.
Yeah.
And then you integrate that into the physical products ecosystem of diagnostics or wearables. And then you've got a really strong solution set. And this is what gives us a sustainable business. We're not just a coffee plant, we're not just a Lysol plant. We are an integrated operation where you dovetailing all your connection points with your end users together to provide women and girls, for example, with treatment over their life
Mhm.
course. You provide them with the products which women will need during their first onset of menstruation, following right through to products for postmenopause. Um, and you're using technology throughout your interactions with with women to generate the data to further develop future products and services and enhance the products and services you're currently providing to them.
Mhm.
So you've got to see your everyday business. AI is making a lot of businesses obsolete or legacy businesses because you need to have that technology component to be competitive and to have a pipeline to develop the future products and services.
Mhm.
I mean, we've seen that recently with all the discussions on AR is sort of potentially having an impact on a lot of software companies in development of the software platforms. And we've seen the same with the physical product universe, where AI will not only play a role in the production of those physical products and services, potentially reducing their cost significantly and improving their quality, but actually being incorporated into those products. And then incorporation of the into everyday products is really through and data generation and utilizing that data effectively.
Mhm.
And this is why, you see Elon incorporate X into SpaceX because X is an AI company which has cost a lot of money to run and had these long time horizon. And SpaceX, is a lot more here and now in terms of generating value and revenue and has a much stronger balance sheet. And so you bring your AI business into the SpaceX environment and it's much more sustainable. And so for us, it's the same story. It's how you bring AI into a coffee operation and all its health operation. And together, they have a lot of sustainability and have a lot of value. If you have AI all on its own, you need to be a big tech company. I mean, people don't realize that Google's sort of the world's best um, drug development organization. Oh, and it's a massive threat to the pharmaceutical industry because Google's got isomorphic labs, which is what DeepMind created for AlphaFold. Um, and so, they took, once they created DeepMind, created AlphaFold, they
Yeah.
spun that, a lot of that stuff out into isomorphic labs. And isomorphic labs they do a much better job than your big pharmaceutical company in new drug development. But your big pharmaceutical company has all the manufacturing capacity for those drugs, which is obviously quite important. But you need to really integrate the two. And so one just has to be cognizant of how big tech companies and AR can suddenly be in your portfolio or in your cabbage patch and disrupt your business. So for us, it's about bringing that technology into the everyday business and creating a new business from that, rather than being disrupted like a traditional business would be. So yeah, it's just that integration. Just always see that we're not a legacy business. We are an AI-enabled business that's being applied into everyday contexts. That's creating new values and new revenue streams from your everyday product. Um, you know, interfacing with people from a technology standpoint.
How is that going to become the foundation for what you want to do next when it comes to human trafficking and things like that?
Yeah, well, you need a revenue stream to support the anti-trafficking, anti-money laundering platform. And so the coffee operation gives us a revenue stream. And then you need a whole lot of technology beyond that to support a data management platform. Um, and so we're able to use a data management platform we're using for the women's health and coffee operations for the anti-trafficking, anti-money laundering. And then we're able to use the accelerated computing platform that we're using for the coffee and women's health to power the anti-trafficking and anti-money laundering itself. And it's not just infrastructure, but it's a whole lot of engineers, and those engineers are also able to deploy their skill sets into the anti-trafficking, anti-money laundering effort. So it's very much an integrated operation of physical infrastructure, human capital, and it's really shared across various different levels.
Mm. Okay. Okay. Anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, and I think
Mhm.
there's a lot to cover and a lot to unpack, so it's quite difficult to sort of just have a quick one-on-one session. and
Yeah.
and share information as to all that we're building, because it takes a bit of time to get one's mind around what is being done. But it's an integration of resources and how we can position and utilize those resources
Mhm.
strategically for South Africa so that we can compete globally. So we can go into the developed world, and we can offer a product at a superior price point and superior quality. And we can bring technology into that product that increases its utility, that can carry us into like women's health context, into diagnostics and treatments, generate that
Mhm.
data to provide further products and services, and continue to evolve and develop um, over time. And so it's really about uniting all these common points together. If you're sitting with just drug manufacturing, that's really not good enough, because how are you going to be positioned to do drug development? And drug development is now really driven by AI. And if you're doing, and if you're in the space of drug development, you basically you competing with a big tech firm like Google, as an example. How are you going to compete with it? And what's going to be your edge and your advantage? This is what we spoke about at the recent machine learning conference here,
Mhm.
Johannesburg, that you attended. And so for us, it's about how we could integrate all these operations, not only to create synergies, but to create a competitive moat, that allows us to take on a Google when it comes to drug development, because we've
Mhm.
got such large data and interaction with various women and girls
Mhm.
across products like sanitary pads, tampons, diagnostics for standalone conditions, a women's health laboratory, and biobank. And by generating all this data and integrating all of it, that presents a good fuel for the AI, ecosystem to develop new diagnostics and new treatments. And then when you've also got, like me, have bioreactor systems, which are drawing upon South Africa's raw materials like bagasse and molasses as feedstock to those bioreactor systems, and we optimize those bioreactor systems with AI. Then we're closing the loop. We've got the ability to not only develop a new treatment, but we've got the ability to also um, work and develop those active pharmaceutical ingredients in an efficient manner. So because you have to have a treatment which can reach women, not only be effective but also be affordable and accessible. So it's no good spitting out a, a new treatment,
Mhm.
but its constituents are prohibitive in terms of cost, or there's problems with manufacturing, all those kinds of things. So you've got to, when your drug development has to take into account your active pharmaceutical ingredients and what can be produced affordably and at scale and those kinds of things. So this is why we integrate all these components. And then I think it's important that if you have a treatment, for example, for endometriosis, as an example, well, we need to be able to affect precision medicine. To do precision medicine, we're going to need a woman to have wearables and/or diagnostics, so that we can measure her serum levels, as an example, and then give that feedback to her to say if she's increased or decreased her dosage for her endometriosis treatment. And so you need to then provide those biosensors, which can detect those markers. And so you basically find when you go throughout Africa that there's a lot of deficiencies, and this is how we've created this all-encompassing tool set. Is understanding that if we diagnose a woman with a condition, that's not good enough. You need to provide a treatment as well. And then if you're providing a treatment, that's not good enough either. It needs to be refined to her particular circumstances and her particular physiology. And so in doing all these things, you're basically having to create data streams. You're having to get a whole picture of that individual together and to inform next steps. And so that's what we've effectively done. Build physical products, put services around that generate data and that can inform a refinement and ultimately improve the quality of life and reduce suffering for women and girls, at least within our women's health operation. And it's the same principles that are being applied time and again throughout operations, whether it's coffee, women's health, and whichever level we're dealing at. So I think I said to you earlier, it's like a Formula One car in the 90s at about 60 channels of data. Now there's thousands, if not tens of thousands, and that data so voluminous a person can't process it. And we're effectively doing that now in all our interactions with women and girls in women's health context, is we're opening up data channels to them. And we're putting in that data and we're allowing AI to drive that process so we can drive more effective products and services, not only to them now, but in the future. And the same is true for coffee. Coffee manufacturing, you're opening up data channels into the coffee manufacturing process. You're then feeding all those data channels to an algorithm, which is effectively controlling the manufacturing of that coffee to have the highest quality coffee at the lowest potential, at the lowest price point, and doing so consistently. And so this is how AI basically disrupts industries and businesses. But
Okay.
instead of us being disrupted by it, we're being the disruptors. We're incorporating it into what we're doing to create new opportunities, to add new value, to generate revenues and resources from export markets to global north and redeploy that in a soft currency environment starting here in South Africa. So I know I've spoken a lot, but that hopefully addresses in a nutshell
Mhm.
what we're working towards.
Okay. Okay. So where can people find you?
Please don't. I am in hiding because people always want to talk about a lot
Mm.
of different things. We have a
Yeah, no.
huge team of people working to bring what is effectively South Africa's most important project together. Because
Okay.
in you know, Brian Moynihan, we spoke with him quite a few years ago about how would we, for example, create what is today like OpenAI here in South Africa. Okay, we would
Mhm.
need hundreds of millions of dollars. We would need to put in all this stuff, but we weren't sitting in Silicon Valley. No one's going to give you a check for hundreds of millions of dollars to do AI in Africa. Okay,
Mhm.
so we still needed to do it, but we had to do it from an applied context. We had to say, well, we can build a business where we can apply AI, like in women's health and coffee, and we can capitalize those businesses. And in capitalizing those businesses, we can capitalize the technology together with that. And then we can scale up that technology to other opportunities in the future, which is what we're working towards. So once we got the coffee and the women's health done, we're going to work on telhedge and AI-driven securities trading. Those are highly lucrative. We use the revenues from those operations to scale up our high-performance computing platform to add more engineers, all right, and to do a lot more in the areas we focused on. So to do
Mhm.
drug development far more effectively and far more and far larger scale as well. So
Mhm.
this computing infrastructure costs a lot of money. Engineers cost a lot, in terms of opex to keep the stuff running every year. But when you're making lots of money, you can support all of that. And then when you've got that technology backbone, you can deploy it not only in women's health and in coffee and in anti-trafficking, but you can also deploy it in other contexts. So we can deploy it to the AI Africa Consortium to support aca- academic institutions, government and industry, both locally and internationally, by
Mhm.
having that AI backbone. So we can have, like you have in the US, a national lab. You currently have them, in North America, having very powerful computing platforms,
Aber
having very powerful engineering teams, being able to deploy that in various contexts. We don't have that in Africa, but we can put that into Africa when we've got the businesses driving the revenue streams to support that infrastructure. So my
Mhm.
point was, years ago when we spoke to Brian Moynihan as an example, it was, okay, you're going to put in all this infrastructure. Who's going to use it? Okay, and that's challenging. If people are going to say they're going to create an AI factory in Africa, I just laugh at them because how are they going to make that work? Who's going to utilize it? So what we did is we were able to justify creating this AI infrastructure because we are effectively our own users. It's our own use
Mhm.
case. All right. We're serving our own purposes. We're putting in this computing infrastructure uh, and we are utilizing it for coffee and women's health and utilizing those revenue streams to grow it and sustain it. But then our future opportunities in hedge and securities trading will allow us to scale that up even more significantly. And then we open up even more opportunities to utilize the technology. And importantly, Tariq, we're able to,
Mhm.
um, you know, generate value here and export that value to other more developed economies. And then, those returns allow us to keep sustaining and growing the business. And then we become a value generator in technology and AI. You know, we're
Mhm.
not only just a consumer because Africa is just a consumer of technology. Africa seldom produces technology. And that's where we really want to get, become a producer of the
Mhm.
new technology so that value accrues to Africa and Africa, we're able to create societal economic impact through that value generation. So hopefully that makes a lot of sense to you. I went through really quickly
Mhm.
and threw a lot at you, but yeah, I do hide away because
Yeah.
people want to obviously chat a lot about things. Happy to have those conversations, but at forums like the recent machine learning conference, that's an opportunity to do those sorts of things. But we have a strong team of people
Mhm.
who work flat out and have been doing so for years to bring this all to pass. And this is Africa's most exciting project because it's very new, it's very integrated, and it's something which has a lot of opportunity. And so our team is strong and diverse. We're working with PricewaterhouseCoopers is our lead arranger. We're working with multinationals across the globe in all different various contexts.
Mhm.
Everyone from bioreactor systems to coffee plants to lifestyle plants to Dell Technologies, NVIDIA, you name it, to bring this all to pass. but it's coming too fast. So within a year, we'll complete our environmental impact assessment. In 2 years from that, our plant will be complete. But in between now and then, there's a lot of work taking place. Now, a lot of our AI infrastructure will actually be online prior to that. And we'll start to deploy some of our digital products and services and platforms, within the next 18 months.
Okay. Okay. Thanks a lot, Greg. Thank you for walking me through it because it's a very complex project. Yeah. So I think this would be a good place to start because I know you have to
Yeah.
run. But thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. And one last thing, don't close the window yet because you have to give it time to upload.
I understand. So I'll leave the window open. Um, and what
Mm-hmm.
I'll do is, Tariq, what we can do
Mm-hmm.
in the future is set up a follow-on session when we can actually show you
Yes.
stuff. Not only show you stuff physically, but also show you stuff graphically. Um, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of images and components and stuff, which will help your audience to better digest what we're doing. So we'll get to that.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, at this
Yes, I
point,
agree.
we have to use people's imagination.
Yeah, but this is a good introduction. I think this is a great introduction. Thanks, Greg.
Thank you, Tariq. Have a wonderful day.
You too. You too.
Goodbye.
Bye bye.